I don't have the stats on the number of people taking PPIs, but after 10, 15 years of prescribing this drug, we realized that it increases the risk of cancer.
So a lot of people feel tired, like on a daily basis. Like people complain frequently about fatigue.
A lot of people don't realize that the fatigue in the middle of the afternoon may actually be because you're just not hydrated.
Meet Dr. Rupy Aujla,
physician, author, and host of The Doctor's Kitchen.
He's here to break down the science of fatigue
and the everyday choices that restore energy.
Can late-day caffeine consumption cause a form of sleep apnea?
I wouldn't say that it would be considered as part of an apnea picture, but you're right in saying that caffeine intake, particularly those who are sensitive to caffeine, later in the day would disrupt the quality of your sleep. The lack of movement actually generates inflammation, which can also have a downstream effect on your mood, your focus, and obviously fatigue levels too.
What do you think about protein bars?
So I think this is
Dr. Rupy, welcome back to the show for the third time.
Thanks, man.
What up?
Yeah.
The last episode we recorded on protein was just so mind-blowing, and I know my audience got a ton of value out of it, so I could not wait to get you back in the chair to pick your brain about a seemingly important topic. If you spend any time perusing social media, Reddit, wellness channels across the vast valley of the interwebs, a lot of people feel tired, like on a daily basis. Like people complain frequently about fatigue. We're not talking about clinical, like chronic fatigue or anything like that, but just like generally people feel tired and sluggish.
Yeah.
So what would you say are the top reasons that people feel that way, tired, sluggish, and what can they do about it?
Well, this is a really interesting topic for me as a medical doctor because a common symptom that we will have to deal with is fatigue, and it's very vague and it's annoying because you can feel like you're doing all the right things, but you still feel terrible. You feel like you've got no energy. And so whilst these might not be statistically the biggest reasons as to why people are tired, from my anecdotal experience working for 10 years in general practice, these are the common reasons that I found people find themselves in this loop of just feeling constantly tired. And the first thing is circadian misalignment. So what is circadian misalignment? Well, your circadian rhythm is the rough 24-hour cycle by which all biological materials or biological living organisms operate on. So whether you're in the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, we're all operating on this rough 24-hour cycle. And it's the same thing for us as well. The main sort of master regulator of our circadian rhythm is something called the SCN, or the suprachiasmatic nuclei. And the stimulus for that is light, which is why, as I'm sure you're a big fan of this as well, getting morning light is so important, because essentially that is the stimulus that goes via your eyes, that electrical impulse is transmitted to the SCN, and then that communicates to the rest of the body, which is living in darkness because it doesn't have access to your eyes, that, it's time to get up. It is time to start operating, and this is the start of the race, as it were. So that filters down to every other cell in your body, whether it's your digestive tract, your pancreas, your liver cells, whatever it might be. This is all being operated or stimulated by the SCN. Now, there are other stimuli as well, but light is the key one. That's the master regulator. Other stimuli can be things like movement. It can be food, so when you take in food. But really, light is the best one, and it goes both ways. So bright light of a specific frequency is one that wakes us up, and there is dimmer light or different frequencies that are actually associated with light going down, like the sun going down, like sunset. That signals it's time to wind down as well, which is why getting morning light is also as important as getting sunset. And I think there's newer research looking at that as well. Now, I'm not a circadian expert, but this is my sort of understanding and my read from the literature combined with my clinical experience of how circadian misaligned we are. Now, if anyone's been on a jet, like a plane journey, like I have been very recently, being here in LA for a good amount of time now, everyone would have had that experience of feeling really not with it when they jump off the plane, right? Your digestive system is off track. Sometimes you feel constipated. You might feel like you've got postnasal drip. Your immune system is activated. You feel aches and pains. You feel like you're coming down with something. This is sort of acute circadian misalignment. This is what it generally feels like. Another thing, anecdotal experience, but something that is shared by millions of people across America and in the UK. Anyone who does night shift is essentially doing this misalignment every single month. And I remember, doing this for over 10 years now. Night shifts were just the worst. You just felt horrible. You were inflamed, you were foggy, your digestive system was all out of whack, sometimes constipated, sometimes you have the runs, you just never know when you're going to go to the bathroom. It's horrible. It's a horrible situation to be in.
It's like occupationally imposed jet lag.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. That's a very good way of putting it, actually, occupationally imposed jet lag. So this is really doing havoc to our body in a number of different ways. But outside of the extreme of doing night shifts or being on a plane the whole time, we are all circadian misaligned. We are all essentially encouraging or your cat. I think your cat is also contributing to this, me as well.
She's circadian misaligned.
She's definitely.
She wants in.
So we're all doing this to ourselves artificially. How are we doing this? Well, we wake up at different times. At the weekend, we like to lie in. During the week, we have to get up for work, depending on what your vacation is. We stay up late. We want to watch a movie late at night during the middle of the week, or sometimes there's a show that we want to watch, or maybe there's a fight or UFC thing or whatever at the weekend. And then, we're constantly moving when we choose to wake up and when we choose to go to bed. And it is this misalignment that's essentially imposing jet lag on every single week. So the lack of consistency across when we wake, when we go to bed, as well as other things that can disrupt our sleep, this is essentially in many ways causing the fatigue that so many people experience on a week-by-week basis. And it's kind of indolent. No one really pays attention to this. I'll watch that extra show on Netflix or Apple. I'm going out with my buddies. I'm going to have a late dinner or whatever. You know what? It's the weekend. I'm going to lay in a little bit more. I'm not going to go outside straight away. I'm feeling a bit sluggish. I'm not going to get that morning light. This is happening across our weeks, our months, and it's no wonder we're feeling tired, because our body is telling us, hey, we are out of alignment with the natural world and our rough 24-hour cycle. Wow.
I wonder if that's part of what characterizes the awful sensation we colloquially describe as hangover. Because on a night out, say it's like Friday night comes, right? And every night of the week prior, you've went to bed to get up for work, 10 o'clock p.m., for example. But then Friday night, you decide to stay out until 1, 2 in the morning, and then you throw alcohol on top of that. Not only are you waking up Saturday morning, essentially jet lagged, but you've thrown alcohol into the mix.
Totally, yeah. And you know what? That happens. I feel like there's a hangover effect regardless if you take the alcohol. But if you add the alcohol to it, you're essentially creating even more inflammation. And I feel inflammation is a term that gets banded around quite a bit, but there's a bit of misinformation or misunderstanding about what inflammation is. I'll briefly dive into this now, actually, because it's a topic that we cover quite a lot in the Doctor's Kitchen. So inflammation is sort of like the language of your immune system. It is super important. The reason why we can sit here in the middle of LA surrounded by environmental pollutants and chemicals and cleaning materials and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure your place is very, very clean and using all the right materials. But, the reason why we're able to operate and survive is because of inflammation. It's because our immune cells are signaling to each other, they're removing pathogens, they're finding cancer cells that are always coursing through our body but just being picked up early and then neutralized. This is all because we have inflammation. We've evolved to have inflammation. But the issue with inflammation in the modern setting is that instead of it being an acute phenomenon that goes up and then goes away, and is only utilized when it really needs to be, it sort of simmers in the background, and it's something that we call meta-inflammation. And what is causing this low-grade inflammation? A number of different things. Food is certainly one of them. A lack of fiber in our diets, processed food, emulsifiers, anything that damages your gut can cause this inflammation. The lack of exercise that we'll talk about a little bit later, this can cause simmering inflammation in the background. The disruption to our sleep, and also things like loneliness, lack of community. These are all things that are pro-inflammatory, and this is something that is persistent and unfortunately very, very apparent in our modern environments as well. So we get this picture of low-grade inflammation that can filter into a number of different downstream effects, metabolic disturbances, heart disease, even dementia and mental health conditions. These all have their roots in in a certain way. They all have their foundations in this inflammatory picture. And so part of this feeling of fatigue is in some cases explained by too much inflammation in the body as well. Wow. And so this circadian misalignment and the knock-on effect on sleep, this is all compounding this picture of a pro-inflammatory environment. I did some looking up on some stats. There are 30 million people in the United States that have something called sleep apnea. Now, sleep apnea is something that I feel is not diagnosed as much. And actually, the formal diagnosis of people with sleep apnea in the States is only 6 million. So there is a magnitude more people who don't realize that they have sleep apnea that's causing this disruption to their sleep. So even, let's say, you do all the things that I'm saying that are correct. I go to sleep at the right time. I wake up in the morning at the same time, but I still feel really unrefreshed. One of the things, regardless of what your weight is, to have checked is actually what is going on during your sleep cycle, which is why I'm a big fan of doing at least a mini tracking session. They're not as accurate sleep studies, but at least it gives you some semblance as to how the quality of your sleep is during the 7 to 8 or 9 hours, however much you get during the night, because there is a huge number of people that are not being diagnosed with sleep apnea that can be causing some of these issues.
And the pathophysiology of sleep apnea, I mean, there are different types, right? There's central, right? There are anatomical anomalies that can lead to that. There's, I think, being overweight or obese, that's a big one, but not necessarily causal.
Yeah. You can have like oral malfunction. You can have sort of overgrowth of certain palate. There are a number of sinus-related issues that can lead to apneas as well. So, and that can be a result of stuffy rooms, environmental pollution, allergies that haven't been picked up. I certainly had a lot of sinus issues myself, actually, and then I took dairy out of my diet as an elimination just to see what happened, and that actually helped quite a bit. I don't think I had a formal diagnosis of sleep apnea, however, but these are things that people should be aware of because unfortunately it is a very common problem, but it's underdiagnosed.
Can late day caffeine consumption cause a form of sleep apnea? I don't know if it would be like technically considered sleep apnea, but if it doesn't allow you to get as deep of sleep as you might otherwise get? Yeah,
I think so. The definition of sleep apnea actually evades me right now, but it is really where you have disruption to that sleep architecture as a result of central or peripheral causes. So I wouldn't say that it would be considered as part of an apnea picture. But you're right in saying that caffeine intake, particularly those who are sensitive to caffeine, later in the day would disrupt the quality of your sleep. So what does caffeine do? So it basically blocks the adenosine receptor. So the adenosine that naturally builds up in your system over the course of a day is going up and up and up, just like levels in a game, if you like. The receptor is being blocked, so the adenosine is still increasing during the course of your day, but you're just not really feeling it because the receptor that recognizes that adenosine, that increasing of fatigue, is being blocked. Suddenly, when the caffeine wears off, you get this crash, and this is what colloquially people call the caffeine crash, whatever it might be. One way to sort of mitigate against this is to, one, reduce the dose of caffeine that you're consuming in a day so you don't get this sharp crash that is very visceral, you can actually feel it. The other way is to make sure that you consume your caffeine pretty early in the day. I'm actually consuming my caffeine quite late in the day at the moment, but that's because I'm doing a whole bunch of podcasts back to back right now, so I need my caffeine, and I'll deal with the caffeine crash a little bit later. But if you have your caffeine in the early part of your day, so before 11 a.m. or generally before 10:30 a.m. is what I do, you can mitigate against that. The other thing to recognize is that we're all different metabolizers of caffeine. There are actually genetic tests that you can do to see whether you're a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer of caffeine. But the general rule of thumb for most people is to think of caffeine having a half-life of anywhere between 8 and 10 hours. So that means if I was to have a double espresso at midday, I might still have a single espresso in my system at 8 p.m.
That's crazy to think about it that way.
I know, yeah. So, and I'm not the kind of person that can tolerate an espresso after dinner. So for me, I have to make sure that I bring my caffeine ingestion a lot earlier in the day.
Man, there's a lot to this whole circadian disruption thing. But okay, so morning light is crucially important, and it's not enough, you would say, right, to just flip the lights on in your kitchen.
No, I wouldn't say so, because when you think about the lux intensity, which is the measure by which we measure light, the amount of lux that you get from bright lights, even the lights that we've got here in your lovely studio, are no match for outside light. I mean, it's an order of magnitude of 10 times more. So like on a really bright sunny day, you're going to get anything from 50 to 100,000 lux outside, right? On internal lights, you'd be lucky to get 10,000. And there are actual lamps that you can get that are usually used in the treatment of something called seasonal affective disorder, which unfortunately is very common in Nordic countries where they don't get exposure to light as much. Even those have got like 10,000 lux, which is good. Even on a cloudy day, that's probably something you get like outside, but it's nowhere near as good as a clear sunny day. And also, you can't really uncouple the fact that getting outside of your house involves a bit of movement, putting your stuff on, getting ready. And so you're sort of activating your day at that point in time by the very process of going outside in the first place. So in terms of tips that I would suggest for making yourself a lot more circadian aligned, consistency is king. That's the main thing. And in all honesty, this is something I struggle with massively. I mean, particularly right now, because I'm on this, PR tour and I'm doing stuff for the book and podcasts and all the rest of it. But even when I'm at home, consistency is very hard. I also do have a 9-month-old, so that's also like playing a lot into this issue for me. But consistency is something that we should all aim for. And if everyone could do this thing for 10 days, wake up at the same time in the morning and go to bed at the same time at night. If you just try that, like put all the other sort of social considerations and engagements aside for just 10 days and just witness how you feel. I guarantee, if this is one of the issues, this will reveal itself as one of the reasons why you're lacking in energy throughout the day. If you could add a few more things on top of that, not only waking up at the same time of day, but like you said, going outside, getting some of that morning light, that stimulus to your suprachiasmatic nuclei, and then also having an early dinner. So an early dinner 2 to 3 hours before your bedtime means that your melatonin, which is a hormone colloquially known as like the sleepy hormone, it does a lot more than that. It's a strong antioxidant that has anti-cancer effects. It tends to creep up in the evening. And when you consume food, it can disrupt the production of that melatonin hormone that we endogenously produce, or we produce it naturally internally. So if you can have an earlier dinner that's not as close to your bedtime, that way you're less likely to disrupt that hormone increase, and you're also less likely to have things like gastric acid going up to the top of your gullet that can lead to reflux as well. So doing that thing, that 10 days, consistent bedtime, wake up time, early dinner if you can, getting outside, try it for 10 days. This could fix a lot of energy and fatigue issues for people.
I think that's brilliant advice. And I have 2 anecdotes to submit to you and my listeners. I recently moved and I was living in a house. I'm not suggesting that if you don't have easy access to bright ambient morning light that you should move. Sure. But I moved because for a number of different reasons. And my prior house was there was very little natural light that I was getting in the main living quarters. And I felt that. Like I felt the way I used to feel in New York City, because in New York City the tall buildings blot out the sun, and growing up there, as an adolescent, I think I suffered from seasonal affective disorder. Because of just the fact that it's so difficult to get that bright ambient light in. And I recently moved, And the place that I moved to has a ton of natural light, like in the main living quarters. And I just noticed that I feel so much better. Not only do I feel better during the day, but my sleep has dramatically improved as a result of getting that, of having much easier, more effortless access to that bright ambient morning light. So that is crucial. And then the second point, to not eating too late at night, I notice personally, like when I eat a late meal, and sometimes it's unavoidable, right? Like if I'm giving a talk late at night and I don't want to get on stage, or not late at night, but in the evening, and I don't want to get on stage with a lot of food in my belly, I'll end up eating like a late dinner. Yeah. And I notice that I actually feel hungover the next day. Totally. I have essentially like a food hangover.
Totally, yeah.
And I had Dr. Sachin Panda on the podcast a number of times actually, and he's like one of the world's preeminent circadian biologists, and he actually said that it's not like the idea of a food hangover from eating too late at night, because it misaligns your peripheral clocks. That's not unheard of. Like that's not an unheard of phenomena.
Yeah. And you know what? Like from my anecdotal experience as well, working night shifts for over 10 years, it's not just the fact that you have to be awake outside of those hours. It's the fact that you're eating during those hours as well. So all of a sudden, you're consuming food and your microbes in your gut are like, hey, what's going on here? It's kind of like, they're at sleep and you're like jolting them awake to get them to start working again. And so it's no wonder your digestive system feels sluggish afterwards. And the next day you feel that, because if your microbes aren't doing their job, then you're creating that local inflammation that can spill out into peripheral inflammation because of the immune cells that line your digestive tract as well. And so this is all compounding with the fact that you've also underslept as well, and it's probably affected the sleep quality that you feel so rough in the morning. So, I mean, I'm the same, but whenever I have to do a late night talk, I tend to have a really early dinner and, around like 5 p.m. if I know that I'm going to be talking late, because I know I just want to go home and go to bed straight away.
Smart. That's great advice.
Yeah. So
consistent bedtimes, that early morning light. And then, I guess from a high level, like what about optimizing sleep itself? I mean, there are so many variables, right? There's the temperature of the bedroom. There's light entry into the bedroom. The phenomena of noise pollution in the modern world is inescapable at this point. There are myriad variables, but what would you say, I guess, are the heavy hitters with regards to optimizing sleep quality?
So it's a really good question. I would say probably the biggest one for me in terms of the easy ones to address would be early dinner, cool environment, dark environment. We've evolved to live in caves. And the other thing that has become really apparent to me recently is the air quality in your room. So this is going a little bit beyond, but I feel this might actually be one of the missing things for me that I kind of disregarded earlier. And when I say air quality, I'm specifically talking about carbon dioxide. So in my setup, I've got a relatively small bedroom because I live in the middle of London. I have me, my wife, and my dog. And so we're all respiring in the middle of the night. There is minimal ventilation in our room, unfortunately, because we live in London. It's cold. You don't want to open the window. And I recently installed a CO2 monitor that you can buy very cheaply on Amazon. There's a whole bunch of reviews there so you can determine which CO2 monitor is the best and which sensors they use. And there's people that geek out on these things massively, far, far beyond my pay grade. But I did some measuring over like a couple of weeks, and I realized that CO2 is super high in our room.
Whoa.
Super high. I mean, it's like above 1,000, and it should be below 300, I think is the threshold. So after doing this, I'm like, okay, we have to do something about this. So air purifiers is one thing, opening the door is another thing, and I guess like, getting the window open, but also maintaining heat. So this is something that I'm actively trying to address, because when you've got CO2 that's in your room, it's sort of driving it's activating certain parts of your brain that are recognizing this gas and jolting you awake. So it's actually going to be having an impact on your sleep quality as well. And I think it's under-recognized as, myself, like calling myself out. I didn't really regard this at all. So
wow, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember there was a study that came out over the past year or two that found that just it was like a randomized, I guess, placebo-controlled sleep study where they subjects slept in either a room that had the window cracked or completely closed, and their sleep quality was improved when there was ventilation in the room.
Yeah. And it comes down very simply. I mean, if you just think about this from a chemical point of view, when you are exposed to more CO2 in your environment, it's going to get you to wake up and breathe more. It's just the simple math of the equation. I mean, it's something that we're very acutely aware of in medicine as well. When you're not breathing adequately, you're actually increasing the acidity level of your blood within the normal range, but it's still going to have impacts on how well you ventilate, what your breath rate is, the oxygen levels in your bloodstream. So it's a really interesting area.
I have another tip to throw into the hat. Curious your thoughts. I also, because I always love offering extremely low cost options, because I think one of the problems with the wellness world, which I'm sure you've seen, it's like everything costs an arm and a leg. It's like
absolutely.
But these solutions don't have to be expensive. You hear oftentimes about the value of blackout curtains, right? Like, it's so important to keep your bedroom dark. But I found that actually what makes me feel way better, I don't even close the curtains in my bedroom. I leave them open, and I bought a cheap sleep mask.
Oh, nice.
On Amazon, cheap velvet sleep mask. And that serves two, I think, really cool purposes, better than what blackout curtains might offer. So for one, I black out all of the light, like in my eyes, right? So I'm sleeping in complete darkness because I've got this mask on. But then as soon as I wake up, I take the mask off, and all of the natural light in the bedroom enters my eyes.
Nice.
As opposed to me just like laying in bed, cuddling with my cat, looking at my phone while those blackout curtains or whatever stay on. Because, it takes a little bit of effort to get out of bed. Like, sometimes there's like that delay. The eye mask is so great because it blacks out, my sleep periphery. And then I just take it off, like, while I'm still in bed.
And it's portable. So when you're traveling, which I'm assuming you do quite a bit, right? Like, you said you're coming to London, which I'm super excited about. It means that you can take that mini sleep environment with you, and it's like portable. The one thing I would say is that, because my wife uses sleep masks, and I use sleep masks, but I've got something called meibomian gland dysfunction. So that's where, like, the oils that provide moisture to the surface of your eye to make sure that they don't over dry, etc., are slightly dysfunctional. And so when I started using a sleep mask, I started getting styes because there's pressure on my eye. Like, if you think about a normal sleep mask, you get pressure on your eye, and it can disrupt the oils that are naturally going from the base of your lid all the way to the top, and then just providing the moisture. So you can buy these on Jeff Bezos' shop or wherever you want to go, but it's one where it's like there's like a bit of a concaveness to it, so it actually protects your eyes, so you can blink without anything like on it, but it gives you the same blackout picture, but it just protects your eyes. So it's like mini eye like masks, ever like eye cups. Yeah.
That's cool. All that is to say, I definitely prefer just wearing an eye mask as opposed to closing blinds in my bedroom. Like, I don't even close them anymore. I leave them open so that the moment I wake up, I can take that off and my windows are open. I can see outside. Yeah,
that's great. Great. Cool, man. All right, let me talk to you about another one that I think is really, really important. And obviously it's my bias, which is poor nutrition and dehydration. So I think a common thing that gets missed, I mean, aside from ensuring that you've got a high quality diet with enough protein, that's got good amounts of fiber in, that's anti-inflammatory, largely a Mediterranean style picture, if you like. You're not consuming too many refined sugars that obviously we do, which is causing corresponding crashes and all the rest of it. Particularly if you have a big meal at night too close to bedtime, that's going to affect your sleep. I think there's key nutrients that I want people to be aware of, and I would actually recommend that you get these tested, and this is certainly something that I would test as a primary care physician if anyone came in with tiredness all the time or fatigue, to just rule out the sort of basics. Iron, particularly if you are a menstruating woman or you're a vegan or vegetarian, these tend to be lower in these cohorts of people, and it's something that is really easily fixed either through a dietary approach or through a supplementation approach. Vitamin D, so we're talking about a lot of sunlight stuff right now. Sunlight is something that we chronically do not get enough of. I know we're fearful of the sun and using sunscreen and all the rest of it, but generally we don't spend that much time in the sun. to create the conversion of vitamin D3 in our skin. Sun has got lots of other benefits as well that we should all be aware of, and also just the fact that we just don't go outside as much as we can. It's no longer shocking to me whenever I see a vitamin D level that is crushingly low. And I like to see vitamin D levels at least above 50, even though the recommendations are to, keep them above 25. I would say anything 25 or below is very, very low. And actually my vitamin D level has been very low, and that's, an account in part because of the melanin in my skin. So those of darker complexion should definitely get their vitamin D levels checked. And I supplement accordingly because I live in London, so we don't get too much sunlight, even if I did spend all day outside. And if I am outside, I'm usually covered up as well during the winter months. So vitamin D3 is something that I would recommend supplementing with K2 as well. We can go into that on the side. And the other thing is magnesium. Now, when people hear magnesium, they probably just think, oh, okay, Rupy's telling me to go out and get magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide, magnesium biglycinate, whatever. But magnesium is quite easily achievable in our diet. And I think the lack of magnesium in our blood work is in some part related to the fact that we just don't get enough magnesium through diet. Where do we get magnesium in our diet? Well, we get it from nuts and seeds, and we get it from certain types of shellfish, I believe, and dark green leafy vegetables. These are things that I want people to be having every single day, as much different variety as possible, cruciferous, romaine, all the different varieties that you can get in as much as possible. But magnesium is in part related to people's fatigue issues, and I think when you just look at the picture of people's lifestyles, it's reflective of all these different things. And in combination as well, like there might be a few people thinking, perhaps not this audience directly, but might be people thinking that, I know someone who's like always on the go, does shift work, doesn't eat well, and definitely does not eat their veggies. It's probably all compounding to have this like fatiguing, energy depleting effect. So whenever I think about magnesium, I'm always thinking, okay, let's take a dietary first approach, nuts, seeds, dark green leafy vegetables. And then, if that's not enough, then I would say, let's add some supplementation. And within that, and this is something that is across the board for both vegans and vegetarians and for omnivores, is B vitamins, and specifically vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is something that is quite troublesome because you can get vitamin B12 through diet. You can get it in meats, you can get it in poultry and fish, but even when you consume that, and sometimes daily, it's still quite hard to push up your vitamin B12 levels. And it's in some part related to the general destruction of certain microbes that convert these nutrients into B vitamins in our body, and sometimes because the absorption is in some way impaired through inflammation as well. Stress can also impact your B vitamin levels.
Also low stomach acid, right? Many people take PPIs, which can impact B12 absorption.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And actually, I don't have the stats on the number of people taking PPIs, but it is way, way too high. And I think, one of the profound realizations I had as a medical doctor was when I came across the research looking at ranitidine, which I don't know what the trade name is in the US, but it's an H2 antagonist, and it's something that we used to give out like Smarties in the NHS for anyone that's suffering with acid. And look, stomach acid has got loads of different causes, but we want to try and address the root causes before we start giving medications. And medications definitely have a role, but therein lies an issue. And after 10, 15 years of prescribing this drug, I mean, it's been out for a lot longer than I've been practicing, we realized that it increases the risk of cancer. So, that's just made me not fearful of drugs, but just very mindful of like the risk-benefit ratio, because even a drug like that has been in our pharmaceutical directories for decades can still have potential harmful effects that we're just unaware of. So you're right to bring up PPIs in general.
I mean, over-the-counter drugs are a cause of many people showing up to the emergency room, right? Like paracetamol, you call it over there, acetaminophen.
Acetaminophen, yeah.
Here, I mean, is the line between a safe and effective dose and overdosing is like that's a very thin line for that drug.
Absolutely.
And then like PPIs, they made PPIs available over the counter. I don't know how many millions of people are taking those on a daily basis, but they found that there's at least observational evidence suggesting that taking those chronically could increase your risk for all kinds of conditions, dementia, not least of which. And then anticholinergic drugs, over-the-counter sleep aids, allergy medications. You really want to be careful with what you're taking chronically.
Yeah, and I think, the fact that you can buy it over the counter almost gives it a stamp of approval, like it's inert, and it's just not the case. And it's the same thing with supplements as well. Like in the wellness industry, we're very happy to give out sulforaphane tablets and refined quercetin and all this stuff. And it's like, well, these supplement companies need to be held to a really high standard because they're not the same as pharmaceuticals in terms of the quality and the purity. And B, just because you can buy it over the counter doesn't mean that it's going to have a negligible effect. In fact, it can have a very powerful effect in both a good and a bad way. So we just need to be mindful on both sides of the equation, I think. Funny story. Well, it's not really funny. Well, it's kind of funny for me, but I was calling out my wife here, so she probably won't listen to this, so that's fine. There is a research looking at taking low-dose aspirin during pregnancy to prevent preeclampsia. And so one of our good friends who's been on the podcast suggested that she take this. So I was like, okay, fine, we'll take this aspirin every day. Little mini aspirin. And I remember one day she was looking in the medicine cabinet and she was like, oh, damn it, I ran out of my aspirin. Can you go get some? And she gives me the empty packet. I'm looking at the empty packet, and this is paracetamol.
No way.
She's been taking a very low dose. It's like 0.5 gram of paracetamol every day for the previous 3 months, thinking it was aspirin. So in a lot of ways, people don't understand, the differences between the trade names and all this kind of stuff. But also, they can be inadvertently taking these things, thinking that they're completely inert. I mean, luckily, it was a very low dose of paracetamol. It's unlikely to have an impact on her liver or anything else, or let alone a baby. But yeah, it's just something to be aware of.
Definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So with nutrition, the other thing, I should say, is dehydration. So when you feel fatigue, particularly in the later stages of your day, it's common to reach for like another coffee or get a 5-hour energy or like something else to sort of stimulate some awakeness. And in some cases it could be simple dehydration. So I tend to have my liquids in blocks throughout the day, so I know when I wake up I'm smashing a liter of water over about 30 minutes, sometimes with salts and some other things in it, but just plain water is fine. And then mid-morning I'm going to have another 500 mils, and then I have another 500 mils. In this way, and I've learned this through my time as a medic, because unless you're very intentional about when you're drinking water, you just don't drink water, and then you realize you're as dehydrated as some of the patients that you're treating. So a lot of people don't realize that the fatigue in the middle of the afternoon may actually be because you're just not hydrated. And if you're not hydrated, it can impair your energy levels, it can impair your level of concentration, and there are studies to demonstrate that mild dehydration can actually do that. So instead of reaching for your coffee, think to yourself, okay, do I need to hydrate more? And maybe this is the reason why I get this typical pattern of wanting stimulants in the middle of the afternoon, because I've got a crash in my energy levels.
Now, is plain water sufficient, or do you recommend electrolytes? Because I personally, I anecdotally, there's a night and day difference. I feel so much better with my daily Element packet. And I'm not just saying that because I work with Element. I eat a largely whole foods diet, as I'm sure you do. And data suggests that the vast majority of sodium, which is an electrolyte, right, intake for your average American comes from ultra-processed foods.
Yeah. So
once you reduce or eliminate altogether your consumption of those kinds of foods, it actually becomes kind of where are you getting where are you getting your sodium from? Which is actually a macro mineral. It's important. It's an essential nutrient. And I notice that when all I'm doing is just drinking plain water without the electrolytes, This is a really funny phenomenon, actually. I asked ChatGPT about this the other day. I pee a lot.
Yeah.
And it's clear, which might suggest that I'm overhydrating.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm not drinking that. Like, I don't drink that much water.
Yeah.
Where I would think that I'd be overhydrating. But then when I add electrolytes, not only do I feel better, I pee less.
Well, there's probably a couple of things going on there. So I agree. I think electrolytes definitely have a role. I think the majority of the sodium that we consume in our diets is coming from ultra-processed food. I'm lucky in that my wife's Italian, so she's putting salt on everything. And whenever I cook, she's always putting more salt in her food because apparently I don't season well enough. But I think if you're training very regularly, which you are as well, you're also going to have a lot of insensible losses. And if you live in a hot environment, you're going to be excreting a lot more as well. So I think in those circumstances, replacement with electrolytes, sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, these would hold value. Does everyone need to add electrolytes? Well, it really depends on your diet, I would say. I think if you're getting ultra processed food, if you're eating lots of processed breads, even unaware, like a lot of people have these healthy wraps in the UK, or they're deemed healthy. You read them, it's just full of salt, full of sugar, full of additives, full of emulsifiers. They're not as healthy as they appear. And if you're consuming that and you're having electrolytes, you're probably going to be consuming too much in the way of sodium. There's also this idea that it's not just sodium on its own, it's actually the lack of potassium in our diets. And where do we get potassium? Before people say bananas are not the biggest source. It's actually things like dark green leafy vegetables and other sources like nuts and seeds from whole foods. So I agree. I think electrolytes definitely hold value. I'm taking electrolyte since being here because we're sweating loads. It's the middle of summer, and I'll probably do the same thing in the UK. And whenever I do a heavy cardio session, like I'm doing Murph training right now, which is like this really cool CrossFit workout. You do a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 press-ups, 300 air squats, and then another mile run, all with a weighted vest. And I love doing that, but like I will lose a lot of water in the way of sweat. So I'm definitely taking electrolytes on those days as well. So I agree. I think it definitely works, and you can pick whatever electrolyte you like.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds a bit like masochism, but to each their own.
I love it, man. I love it. And the other thing that I think is really important to recognize about, and just as we're talking about nutrition in general in this sort of area of like why people are fatigued, is the high refined cereals and carb-rich breakfast that people consume. We talked a bit about this on my last podcast with you, where I'm a really big fan of getting protein and fiber first thing in the morning, because it gives you steady energy levels, it mitigates against that crash, and it reduces cravings because you're releasing these incretin hormones from your digestive tract, like GLP-1, for example, that stimulates, that communicates to your brain that you're no longer hungry, and therefore you're not like craving sugary, sweet foods. And also, the first thing, if you're going to be consuming like a refined cereal, you're going to have a lovely glucose spike and a corresponding crash, and that's going to really crash your energy. And then it's just, you're off on a roller coaster for the rest of the day, and you're just constantly chasing your tail of energy crashes and energy highs with stimulants and more sugar, etc., etc. So it's unfortunately a vicious cycle and a vicious pattern that people find themselves in commonly that I want people to avoid. And one way in which you can avoid that is by making sure that your breakfasts are almost like pre-prepared, if you like, or you're just really fastidious about having a little bit of time to cook a high protein, high fiber meal at the start of the day.
So for breakfast, focus on, and we did a really deep dive into like the mechanisms underlying why this is so smart, but focus primarily on protein and fiber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as an example, like I had a 3-egg scramble today, some corn tortillas, side of broccoli sprouts, some tomatoes, and I've got into these really cool venison sticks. I don't know if they're sponsors of your podcast or whatever, but like they're really lean and they've got like 8 or 9 grams of protein per stick or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're
the only venison stick brand I'm familiar. We don't work with them, but Maui Nui.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. They're like ethically
tasty.
reared and stuff because they're an invasive access species. They should really sponsor you now after I'm talking about this. I'm basically doing their read for them, but they're really good. They're like delicious. They're super lean, low in saturated fat, and they just got a really good source of protein. So whenever I'm like struggling, I'll either have something like that, or I'll add some tempeh or some extra beans or some nuts and seeds, that kind of stuff, just to boost up my protein. Because from the eggs, average egg is about 6 grams of protein, so 3 eggs would be 18. So under consuming otherwise. So just adding that a little extra boost, that will get me 35-40 grams in the morning. That just keeps my energy levels nice and steady, and it just keeps me satiated as well.
What about for midday snacks? Like what are some good options for that? A lot of people will stroll into the rec room or the vending machine, God forbid, and most snack options that are available today are they're terrible. They're all refined grains, lots of added sugars, lots of added fats.
Yeah, this is where I think it really pays dividends to be a little bit prepped. So for me, it's difficult for me now because I work in a kitchen. I work in my kitchen studio where we also have our podcast and stuff. So I've got access to all the healthy stuff. But if I take myself back to the days when I was working as an NHS doctor in the middle of a busy hospital with a vending machine that is selling absolute rubbish, that is the cause in a lot of ways for the people that are actually in the hospital, which is still a massive, massive bugbear. And I won't rant about it, but you can tell my frustration with the system that consistently undervalues the impact of poor nutrition on health. But anyway, I would have things like really good quality Greek yogurt that I'd keep with me with some berries, and I'd top it with either mixed nuts and seeds, or I would enrich it with more protein by adding things like tahini or smooth peanut butter to that as well. That way you've got like a good quality 15 to 20 gram snack without having to rely on a protein powder. The other thing about protein powders, even though they give you that extra boost of protein, is that they're not very satiating. In fact, liquids in general are not very satiating. So I wouldn't suggest that would be a good snack to have, even though I think it's convenient options for protein and really has benefits for body composition. But yeah, Greek yogurt would be my go-to. And the other things are like peanut butter on toast, or fruits with, again, nuts, a handful of nuts and seeds. Like a handful of hemp seeds gives you 8 grams of protein.
Wow.
And it has all 9 essential amino acids. It's got those fatty acids. It's got a little bit more fiber. So those are the kind of snacks that I tend to go for. What do you snack on? Like, do you have like a routine or like a...
Yeah, whole fruit is generally like a great go-to for me because it's, very hydrating. It's got lots of minerals in it, water, the fibrous matrix. I also love Greek yogurt. I love beef sticks or venison sticks or whatever I've got laying around. Beef jerky is pretty easy to come by. I think nuts are a great option, but I'm personally prone to over-consuming them, especially when they've got a little bit of salt or seasoning on them.
Yeah.
And nuts are mostly fat by calories. Like I do appreciate the protein that I get from a handful of nuts, but let's be real. Nuts are mostly a source of healthy fats. What are some other, like high protein?
On that note about fats, actually, I remember speaking to Sarah Berry about this in the pod. I can't remember if we talked about this, but she did a study where she looked at, or her and her group looked at the calorie absorption from nuts across different individuals. And there was a huge variability in the number of calories that were absorbed from the nut itself. So within this, I think there's genetic variability or maybe microbial variability, depending on the state of your digestive tract, that leads people to put on weight because of fats from otherwise good, healthy, whole sources, or maintain their weight while still eating the same number of calories. So it's really intriguing to me because I think for me, man, I can smash pounds of nuts, like packets of nuts, and just my weight is just stable.
Interesting.
I know I'm good, but the thing is, like across a week, maybe I'm just like readjusting. Maybe my non-exercise activity thermogenesis is like increasing without me even thinking about it. So there's probably loads of like other factors that are very hard to control for, but I do notice this variability in folks in general, that some people are going to have loads of nuts and other people they look at a bag of nuts and they start putting on weight.
No, you're right. I rember there was like a USDA study a couple of years ago that found that the calorie, when you look at the nutrition facts of a bag of nuts, like they're actually inaccurate because you only absorb about 70% of the calories that are listed.
Yeah. And there's also variation in the nutrition values. And so the calorie values on food should be fixed. That's like there should be a very, very true statement of exactly what the calories are, because we know what the calorie is in food. What we don't know is how many of those calories are going to be absorbed, like how much is going to pass straight through you, how much can you actually break down, what your digestive tract and your digestive enzyme picture looks like that leads to the absorption of those calories. There is like where there's a whole mess in terms of biology. But you're right, within the packet, there is a variation of like 10 to 20% allowance that they are actually allowed to, to have. They need a bit of buffer. So you're dealing with that variability, and then you're also dealing with the biological variability from person to person,
right,
which makes it very, very hard, which is why I appreciate calorie counting. I think it's a really interesting exercise, but I think it can be taken to an extreme where it's like almost yielded like an absolute truth, and nothing could be further from the truth. There's a whole bunch of gray in there.
Do you recommend like weighing food? Have you ever done that? Do you like a food scale?
So, I mean, I think it's important to be calorie aware. So the very fact that we both know that calories are high in nuts, for example, or that, eating a fatty steak is going to be a lot more calories than the same lean. But have I ever weighed food personally? No. Have I recommended anyone do it? No. Would I say it's an interesting exercise to do for a couple of weeks? Yeah, I would probably say so. Why not? I mean, as long as it doesn't spiral into an unhealthy relationship with food. But I've just come across a number of patients who can no longer look at a banana anymore without thinking about the calories in that banana. Do you know what I mean? It's like something that's etched in your brain, you can't remove it. And for some people, that's just a bit too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would agree. I don't track, but I do enjoy having, even for cooking purposes, I like having a digital scale in my kitchen. It allows me to buy certain things in bulk and then portion out what it is that I'm eating, just to know, like, because there are some foods where it's just like really you have no idea what you're consuming.
Yeah.
I'll just give you an example of a vice for me that shouldn't really be a vice, but dried mango. Dried mango, I could literally in one sitting, I could eat 1,500 calories worth of dried mango. Easy.
Yeah, totally, yeah. I can imagine that with like dried apricots and dried stone fruit in general. But dried mango is like absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
So you just go through the bag.
It's like proof of God.
Yeah.
That dried mango exists. So for me, I like to just like weigh it out, to just know that I'm not really eating much more than a serving size, or maybe two servings. Like I don't actually limit myself, but it's just a good sort of mental hurdle. If I know that I've just eaten, if I know that I'm about to eat 5 servings of dried mango, that's just a little bit of like a little bit of friction there.
I see that, actually. That's a really good point, because you're sort of ring fencing your innate desire to just overconsume. And so for certain people, if you're like, okay, if I know that that's like 100 grams or whatever, and I put it in that tub, I can smash that tub and I can stop. Whereas certain people, I mean, I'm like that with corn chips. So if I have a family size of corn chips, I'll just keep on consuming all of that. And this is why my ring fence, instead of weighing it out, is I just don't have that crap in the house. And this is like a bit of tension between my wife, because she can literally have 3 corn chips and just put the thing away. I can't do that.
Yeah,
I'll just be sat in the kitchen, she'll hear me rustling and she'll be like, Ruby, stop eating.
Yeah. It's crazy. Some people just have that ability. My little brother is like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he could just have like a few chips or pretzels or whatever. Me, I whole bag. I whole bag.
Yeah.
For me, it's a verb. I just go through it, and I don't feel any guilt or shame, because when I take that, for me, I know my behaviors and my responses to those kinds of trigger foods. And I just consent to eating the whole bag, and I'm good with it.
Yeah. I know. I don't really feel bad afterwards. I just know, that's just like that thing for that week, and I'm just gonna try and do better the next day.
Yeah.
On that note, so my tip for this poor nutrition and potential dehydration, is measure how much water you're consuming in a day as an exercise to see whether you are under consuming. And I would titrate it according to the color of your pee as well. You want to be looking for light straw colored. I had a bunch of urologists talking about this on my podcast, and that's still the sort of like general rule of thumb. There are probably ways in which you can be a lot more accurate about it, but I don't think it's necessary. I think just ensuring that you're consuming enough for your needs, and you can weigh yourself and figure out your exact meals. But I would say titrate it according to your urine color. And this is where I think testing is actually something that I would suggest, and it's quite easy for folks to do this themselves if they don't want to go see their doctor. So get your vitamin D levels tested, I would get your B12 tested, and I would get your iron levels tested as well. So D, B, and iron levels. Very, very simple, relatively cheap. You can do it at home. You can get your doctor to do it. But I think that would be a nice base for folks to figure out as to whether there is anything that need to address through diet primarily, or supplementation if they can't address it through diet alone.
Very smart. When it comes to going back to snacks.
Yeah, go.
I've got
You hungry as well?
Snacks on the brain. Yeah, maybe slightly. What do you think about protein bars? We've got a lot of options here now in the United States. It's sort of like a thing now. There's a lot of focus on them. There's a lot of new options coming on the market.
Yeah.
I don't know what your options are in terms of protein bars.
We have plenty of options in the UK.
Yeah.
We have too many, but
I mean, traditionally they're all crap. Like they're all.
Yeah.
But I've found like there's a brand here I have no affiliation with them, but I think it's called Built or Build.
Mm-hmm.
They have like these puffs.
Oh yeah.
They sell them at Costco.
Okay.
Built bars, Built Puffs,
bars.
I think they're called. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll eat like 2 a day. Generally.
Okay. 2 a day. That's a lot.
Well, they're small. They're
they're tiny. Yeah. I'm just looking at
they're
them now.
small. And what I like about them is that the protein to calorie ratio is like really favorable. So in a bar, you get about 17 grams of protein and 140 calories.
Okay.
Or something like that. Very high protein to calorie ratio, and so I'll just like smash 2 of them for 34 grams of protein.
I'm looking at the ingredients, bro, and they ain't good.
What do you mean? Tell me.
So I'm looking at a Built Bar salted caramel right now, and it's got a protein blend, which is hydrolyzed whey protein isolate, water. Okay, fine. Maltodextrin, glycerin, sugar, palm, and palm kernel oil.
I don't have a problem with any of those.
Cocoa processed with alkali, so it's alkalized cocoa, so you're removing the polyphenols.
Fair.
Natural flavors that you don't know what's in. Cultured dextrose, soy lecithin, and gelatin. So I don't know, man. Two a day. I would say, look, if you're doing it once every now and then, I don't have a problem with it either. But this is something that I would say is ultra processed, and you're adding to your diet every day.
It is ultra processed.
Take it out.
I don't know.
If you're sponsored by them, take this bit out, man.
I'm not. I would like to be though, because I genuinely enjoy them. And
look, you do you, man. Like, but just own it. Like, if you like, I like ultra processed food as well.
So you don't consume anything with natural flavors? I think natural flavors are fine, personally.
I tend to avoid it, not because I don't think natural flavors are bad, but it's sort of a label that you can get like loads of things mixed into.
It's like a black box. Like you don't know.
Yeah, it's an umbrella term for lots of different things. And I just
agree with
don't know what's actually in them. This is one of the issues that I have with the label. Not that I don't think flavors that come from natural sources like limonene and citrus and all the rest of it, they're completely fine, but manufacturers can hide behind that term to insert whatever they want. And I'm a big fan of transparency, particularly when it comes to products that are processed. The other thing is maltodextrin as well. I mean, like, I don't know what the dose of maltodextrin is in this, and I just wonder how much, and particularly if you're consuming it daily and twice a day, you just don't know what dose you're getting and what effect that might be having on your gut long term. You might feel fine in the moment. That's fine, but it's just the long term ramifications of that I'd want to avoid.
I used to supplement with maltodextrin.
Oh, really?
It's a glucose. It's basically pure glucose.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not eating. What did
you supplement for? Was it like marathon training or like?
I was just like in a bodybuilding phase where I was just slamming it post workout, which I didn't need to do. I'm not recommending that people do this, but I back in the day I wanted to see what like heavy bolus of post-workout glucose
Yeah,
was going to
gotcha.
do for my lifts.
Yeah.
So I would take like 75 to 100 grams of maltodextrin post-workout, which is like, it's technically a complex carbohydrate, but it breaks
Sure.
down
Yeah.
like almost
Into-
instantly
yeah,
into,
into simple sugars,
pure
yeah.
glucose, which is that makes it a unique carb source because it's not like fruit or anything like that, which tends to be a mixture of glucose and fructose.
Yeah.
So maltodextrin is just like pure glucose.
Yeah.
And so my perspective on this bar is that, well, all things being equal, I don't really care how much fat or carbohydrates are in the bar because the protein to calorie ratio is favorable.
Yeah,
so no matter what,
Yeah.
it's a food or a food-like product, if you want to, if you will.
Yeah.
That's mostly protein.
Yeah. No, that's totally fine.
And the palm oil I don't care about. I know there's like ethical concerns
There's
about
there-
that, but from a fatty acid perspective, like it doesn't really bother me. And then the processed with alkali cocoa.
You're not consuming this for the benefits
No.
of the cocoa. Yeah,
No.
yeah. No, I get that. I think from a macro point of view, I completely agree. If that's the sole focus for why you're consuming these bars, and it's just to put you in a favorable macronutrient or give you a favorable increase in protein, like I get it. I personally just wouldn't suggest that to folks because of the fact that it's got all these additives in that are unnecessary for the regular diet. Like you know, if you're working out, you're in a bodybuilding phase, and you're slamming maltodextrin as well. I mean, there's a reason for that. You know, it increases the uptake of proteins into your muscle, it increases muscle protein synthesis. You're doing it in a very data-driven way. Most people aren't. Most people aren't doing it that way.
Fair.
I'm glad we had this little sidebar, man.
No, I like it.
This
I
is
like
awesome. So you must be a fan of the other bars, right? Where they use like a fat that isn't absorbed.
I'm not a fan of those bars. No.
Oh, why not?
Yeah, I'm not because of the this fat that you're referring to, EPG, I think it's called, freaks me out.
Yeah.
It just harks back to when I was a kid. We had this fat on the market in ultra processed foods called Olestra, which
Orlistat.
Did you have it over there?
Yeah, I think we did.
It basically created like a slip and slide in your in your intestines, and people were complaining of oil leakage in their underwear.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so I think it's also rapeseed oil derived.
I know you got an issue with seed oils as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's got all of these artificial sweeteners and flavors. So it's maltitol, it's sucralose, it's like Ace K. So there's a lot of junky ingredients in there that are synthetic and
well, this is where there's so much gray area, right? Because someone with the same meaningful intentions might buy that bar and buy the bar that you're talking about as well and think that they're equivocal, whereas actually you're describing some nuances there which are not as easily delineated for the average consumer, right? They might look at one and be like, oh, well, they look the same and this is cheaper, or so-and-so is promoting this, so I'm going to go for this bar. So
yeah, I mean, I try to encourage that level of thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
For my listeners and viewers, I think it's. I mean, I also happen to be a nerd for this stuff, so I find it fascinating to go through these nuances and to like, you know, there's something very. It's like also there's like an aspect of like Jewish humor to it where it's just like kind of debating what is ultimately kind of meaningless.
Yeah.
You know, like in the grand scheme of things.
Your protein bar sucks. My protein bar is a lot better.
Yeah. There's something very like Larry David or Seinfeldian about it. But yeah, it's not something that like I think is essential. I wouldn't recommend it to people, but you know, as sort of like a midday convenient snack, if I don't feel like eating Greek yogurt or whatever, beef jerky, it just kind of hits that spot. And it also feels like a bit like a sweet treat.
You know, I have a suggestion actually, because I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes you just want like something chocolatey in a bar or whatever. I made this, this is going to be higher in calories, so it might not fit the bill, but like it's ground almonds, proper cacao, so raw cacao, which is actually quite high in protein on a per calorie basis as well. with a tiny bit of sugar, but whatever sugar you like, and you just mash it up together with your hands, and it turns into like this cookie crumble almost.
Whoa.
And I put that on top of some high protein Greek yogurt with like some berries, and I have that. That's a really good little snack that you can make in bulk and stuff. And it's literally like cookie crumble. It's just almond flour, raw cacao, sweetener of choice, mash it together with your hands. It kind of like collects together like little cookie like pieces, and then you put that on Greek yogurt. It's delicious, man.
Damn.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, so we covered circadian misalignment. We covered
nutrition and dehydration. Yeah, so I would for that tip, I would say, get your bloods done and make sure that you're hydrating properly. The third thing that I see very, very commonly is basically something that we're doing right now, and it's sedentary lifestyle. Now, obviously, we're going to be moving around in a second, but there's a recent survey looking at the NHANES data, and they found that 25% of adults sat for more than 8 hours per day, sitting for more than 8 hours per day. And I'll explain why that's an issue. And 44% of adults were classified as inactive, i.e. they engaged in no moderate or vigorous activity in a leisure capacity during the week, which is like really, really shocking, like really, really far below. And given everything that we've talked about before, we've evolved to move. We haven't evolved to sit in desks, on behind desks, on chairs, in artificial light outside of natural sun. This is a very unnatural way of living, and it's part of this modern lifestyle that is pro-inflammatory, as we discussed earlier. So this lack of physical exercise is actually something that leads to lower energy production at a cellular level, because it leads to mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, it kind of sounds a bit paradoxical, right? You're like, okay, the lack of movement leads to a lack of energy. Surely if I'm moving, I'm expending energy, so I'm going to have less energy afterwards. It doesn't really work like that. So when you do regular movement, what it does is it stimulates something called mitochondrial biogenesis. So mitochondria, in a very colloquial term, are like the powerhouses of your cells. So they are responsible for generating ATP through the Krebs cycle. It utilizes glucose and fatty acids. And when you exercise, you actually upregulate the production of these mitochondria. And it's something that has been proven time and time again. We're doing these muscle biopsy studies where they actually take the cells out of the muscles, and they show that these mitochondria become more efficient and also higher in volume as well. And there's a whole bunch of pathways which makes that happen. When you have more mitochondria, therefore you have more ATP. You have more of this energy currency that your cells all use. The other thing that's really important to recognize is that it's not just having this impact at a biochemistry level or biochemical level where you're generating more ATP. You're actually creating a more favorable hormonal profile as well. So you're generating things like catecholamines that again give you more energy. If you've ever been like super pumped before you go on stage, suddenly you've got so much more energy, is in part because of these catecholamines as well. So adrenaline, these are the ones that people have probably heard of, enhancing your alertness and enhancing your focus as well. So movement is super critical to increasing the production of these things too. The other thing is dopamine. So boost your dopamine, which is something that can elevate your mood and motivation. Dopamine is something that I'm fascinated by. I need to learn a lot more of. Speaking to a number of different neuroscientists in the podcasts and previous guests as well. The impact of our screens on dopamine is really interesting for me, particularly having a 9-month-old son and trying to figure out how to navigate this very complicated world of screen time. It's something that I'm trying to do myself. Like I'm addicted to my phone. My phone's right here. I've got it on airplane mode, but like you can feel the dopamine like draining in your body when you're utilizing these screens way too much. So it's just one of those things that it's something to be mindful of. And the other thing is, when you exercise, you increase the ability of the transport of glucose in your cells as well. So you actually improve the efficiency by which you're taking glucose from the bloodstream into your cells, where it can be utilized for energy. So movement in and of itself is something that we need to start leaning into a lot more when it comes to energy. And I've already stated the stats around how little people move. And we're just not doing the activity that leads to energy generation in the first place. But what makes this even more perverse is the fact that in activity, not only are you losing the benefits of the increase in mitochondria and the catecholamines and the dopamine, but the lack of movement actually generates inflammation, which can also have a downstream effect on your mood, your focus, and obviously fatigue levels too.
Wow, it's so paradoxical.
Yeah,
that inactivity could actually make you feel more sluggish.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, or that inactivity, because we tend to think of exercise as the stressor, but inactivity itself is a stressor.
Yeah,
which is paradoxical. Like am I like laying on the couch? Like, how is this a stressor?
Yeah,
but it's like biologically.
Yeah,
it's a stressor.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you do think of exercise. Well, exercise is a pro-inflammatory activity, right? Like when you exercise, you are shearing those muscles, you are increasing cortisol, you are increasing inflammation locally in the cell. And like, if someone observed this, that humans are doing this, so they're going to 24-hour fitness and they're like stressing their muscles and all this stuff, and you do biopsies and they're like, yo, you should stop doing this. This is really not healthy for you. But actually the net effect is anti-inflammatory. The net effect is your muscles become hypertrophied, or they improve their quality and their efficiency, and it has a net impact on reducing inflammation overall. So when you move, you're actually increasing so many different things. I mean, exercise is literally, I know I'm a food guy, I know we're food people, but if I had my time again, I'd probably go like all into exercise. I mean, I do exercise. I love exercise. I think there's just so many ways in which you can utilize exercise without going to a gym, just like getting up every single day and doing some form of activity. But it is literally like the medicine for so many people, and a real important factor for people with fatigue. So I remember actually, in a non-judgmental way, I would ask people who came in complaining of fatigue all the time, or tiredness, how often they got up, what they did for work, how long were they sat behind a desk. It's not applicable to everyone. Some people are cleaners, some people are on their feet the whole day, some people are waitresses and waiters. But for a lot of people, particularly office-based workers, it's a big issue. And so my tip for everyone listening to this is you've got to consciously move every hour. So I literally put this into action with me and my team. In fact, as part of every full-time member, team member of the Doctor's Kitchen has in their contract that we encourage you to move every hour. It's literally in the contract.
Wow.
And I encourage people to get outside light, fresh air throughout all seasons as well. And it's something that we speak very, very candidly about as a team every day. Like, did you go outside and get your time outside? Did you take a walking meeting instead of like taking a meeting at your desk? Did you move every hour? And so we're lucky where we are in the studio. We've got these like really big beams across the ceiling, and so I just grab hold of the beam and I just like hang from there. And I sometimes do. Have you heard of Grease the Groove?
No.
Oh man, so Grease the Groove is this technique that was popularized by this European trainer. I'm blanking on his name here, but like, if you want to increase your the number of pull-ups that you can do, right? A standard exercise routine might be to do 50 pull-ups on Monday and then 50 pull-ups on Thursday, and then just try and gradually increase the volume by like maybe adding some weight or like putting on a vest or whatever it might be. Grease the Groove is this process whereby you do pull-ups every single day, but you do a very low amount. So you might do like 3 or 4, 2 or 3 times a day, every single day. So you're not exerting yourself to the point where you're fatiguing or you feel stressed. You almost feel like you could do like another 3, another 4. But what you're doing is you're teaching that muscle to become a lot more used to the activity, and thereby you increase the volume that you're able to do during the week or during a single session. So Grease the Groove, and it can be applied to anything, whether you're trying to improve your squats or trying to improve your press-ups or whatever. So I've started doing, this is a long tangent here, but like I started doing a bit more Grease the Groove for my chin-ups because I'm doing this Murph thing. I'm trying to improve my time. So we've got these beams, and I just literally hang from that, and I try and do that every hour or so.
Wow.
During the day. So
do you do them to failure or?
No. Just literally like 3 or 4 reps as part of a set, and I'll do that a couple of times during the day.
Wow.
But yeah, you don't want to, grease the groove is not doing it to failure. It's so that when you do your sets to failure, you increase the volume that you're able to do.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, really cool. You should look into that, man.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, my brother, I don't know if he called it that. I feel like that might be borrowing some.
I'm going to see who this guy was.
Some of the methodology from other, strength training protocols, but he really wanted to get his bench press up. And so he started bench pressing every day. But not to failure. But just increasing the weight steadily every day. And he said his bench press exploded. As a result.
Pavel Tsatsouline.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the guy. So Grease the Groove was
school.
Popularized by Pavel Tsatsouline, former Soviet Special Forces instructor and the pioneer behind the kettlebell training in the West.
Yeah, he's legit. I don't know anything about him. I've not done a deep dive into his work, but he's very highly regarded, I guess, among strength athletes.
Yeah. I think he was on Humans as well recently. So, legit guy. But Grease the Groove, man, there's something that, I mean, we've gone really off topic. You don't have to do Grease the Groove if you just want to improve your energy levels. But I personally are trying to move as much as possible every single hour because, look, we're designed to move. Our bodies have evolved to like walk over plains and, hunt and gather and constantly be like, on our feet. We're not designed to sit in this chair. And again, another reason why I see or have seen a lot of people with back pain is because we're keeping our body in a very unnatural position. We're not meant to be putting this much weight through our buttocks, sat down on our spines. It's actually, we're meant to be using our lower limbs. We're meant to be like standing and bending and moving in so many different planes. So I think this is in part one of the reasons why we see not only just fatigue levels, but also chronic epidemic levels of back pain as well.
Oh, yeah. The former story of my life. I had back pain for a really long time.
Yeah. And look, within this, like, I know we've been talking about fatigue and tiredness, and as a medical doctor, I just want to make sure that people understand that there are so many different causes behind tiredness and fatigue. And if you're suffering from any other symptoms, like there's weight loss, there's changes in your bowel, you're getting skin discoloration, you're getting headaches, and you need to see a primary physician because there are so many different causes of this. We want to remove any other red flags. We want to make sure that we're not missing things like autoimmune conditions, any severe deficiencies that I haven't covered. There's also things like chronic infections, particularly long COVID. I think that is under-recognized, and I think we're going to witness a lot more people actually coming forward recognizing the fact that they have long COVID. Even though it's been 5 years now, I think we're still seeing people with that. And because COVID still is in existence and we're getting seasonal bouts of it, this is something that is going to come up again. But even the traditional ones like Epstein-Barr virus and the herpes viruses, these can all lead to chronic conditions as well for fatigue.
Well, I really appreciate the deep dive on exercise, and also circling back to the first point that you brought up, sleep. I mean, sleep quality. Like, exercise is crucially important for maintaining optimal sleep quality. I mean, studies show that exercise improves sleep. It helps to build what I think some sleep scientists refer to as sleep pressure. I know that I sleep way better on days that I've exercised.
Yeah.
I've just been sitting around the house all day or just working all day around the clock. Like, I'm not sleeping as well. I just haven't expended enough energy, built up that sleep pressure, built up adequate adenosine, right? So, yeah, I mean, everything's interconnected, but exercise, I would agree with that the notion that exercise is a form of medicine.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So there you go, man. I would say those are probably the key areas. And if you can align all of these, improve your circadian rhythm by optimizing your sleep, improving and addressing any nutrient deficiencies, cleaning up your diet and making sure that you're getting good amounts of magnesium and vitamin D, either through diet or supplement, probably most likely going to be supplement. For certain folks with vitamin D deficiencies, and you're addressing a sedentary lifestyle with regular movement to supplement, an exercise regime, which is resistance training and cardiovascular training. Like, these are the things that we should be looking into before, putting someone under a barrage of tests. And I think if we were to optimize all these, we'd be chipping away massively at the epidemic of chronic fatigue and tiredness.
Love it. Dr. Rupy, you're the GOAT. Thanks for...
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Thanks for this. So fun. Remind my listeners where they can connect with you online and voraciously consume your content.
Oh, I appreciate that. TheDoctorsKitchen.com is where you can find everything Dr. Rupy related. The Doctor's Kitchen app, the Doctor's Kitchen books, the YouTube channel, Instagram, all that good stuff. And use the app because you can actually speak to me on the app. There's the virtual Dr. Rupy function where you will literally be able to ask me all these questions that you've been asking me.
Amazing. Cool, brother. Well, thank you so much
Thank you,
again.
man.
I know my audience appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones that'll benefit from it, and I will catch you on the next episode. Peace. Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.